Alice, and welcome back again for another art lesson with me, Miss Robertson. Today it's part 2 of our comic book lesson. We are learning to create, when we think about the hero stories that we looked at before, this story has to have all of the same elements. We need a hero and we need a villain. So my hero is Gallus Gran, not to be underestimated by anyone. So the change that we see in Gran happens after she accidentally eats a radioactive sandwich. Now the challenge is she's constantly being underestimated and unknowingly becomes witness to a crime. Our villain is TJ Pesky. He's a young local youth that hangs about causing trouble. He likes to misbehave, and his downfall ultimately comes when Gallus Gran defeats him. So when you're creating your characters, have a think about what their name is and why they are the way they are. In my story, the important things that I need to be able to draw and visualise for this is my radioactive sandwich. So to begin with, I'm drawing a little cucumber finger sandwich like you might have in an afternoon tea and imagining what that will look like. However, as soon as I add a green border around, it becomes a radioactive sandwich. That's how I'm going to show in my comic book that it's not an ordinary lunch. I've also got 2 little characters here. This is going to be Gallus Gran's cat. This is Parker, who is very friendly and a kind of gingery cat. So I'm trying to communicate that by showing that he's smiley and happy and very fluffy, would be really nice for a cuddle. In comparison to Frank. Frank's mischievous ears point back the way. He has curly whiskers and we can see his claws. This all helps to communicate with my audience who are reading my comic book that this is the bad cat. When I think about what Gallus Gran's powers are going to be, I think, what would be our stereotypical weapons for our Gran? Well, she would always have some knitting needles and a ball of wool in her handbag, so perhaps it would be interesting if, when she does defeat Pesky, that actually out of her handbag comes the ball of wool. She's able to lasso him, tie him up, ready for the police to arrest him with the ball of wool. Spider-Man style throws it at him, and the 2 knitting needles pin him against the wall, unharmed but ready for the police to arrest. What else might Gallus Gran have in her handbag? If I think about my own granny, she was never without some shortbread, a little biscuit, a little snack in her handbag. Perhaps it's poisoned with something to make you freeze where you are. Maybe it's ultimate energy boost for being a super speedy Gran. When I think about the scene that I'm going to pick to draw out, Gallus Gran is going to eat the sandwich. She's going to rise up glowing green. We're going to see Parker the cat looking shocked and strange powers starting to emerge. As it goes on into the next scene, Gallus Gran is going to stop TJ Pesky from stealing a handbag, and he's tied up by the ball of wool and pinned to the wall by the knitting needles. Gallus Gran is going to be surprised by the powers. Well, here are some examples of how comic books are printed. If you look very closely at traditional comic books, they're printed with little dots. Now there's a couple of reasons for this. It meant that even if they were printing very simply with a small selection of colours, they could make many more by layering these little circles. It's how we might go from an area of light to dark that they layer more of these circles on top of each other. It's also a slightly cheaper way of printing because the whole picture isn't filled in, it's made of tiny little dots instead. Now I'm using this kind of template today, and like we did before, I'm reading left to right and down we go. With this little bottom box, we can really decide where in our story that's going to go. It might go absolutely last, it might show us a slightly different view or what's happening at the same time, but that's up to us. And I've sketched out briefly my story here, and I'm going in with some colour to add the details. So in the background it's plain washes of colour, so I'm using pencils. For more detail for the Gran character and for all of the outlines, I'm going to be using pen. You can experiment with a little mixture of a couple of different materials. You might even want to paint it a little bit for the background and go in over the top in pen. Up to you. And although I'm not doing mine in dots, as I'm colouring in, I'm doing some stripes, which will make this really eye-catching from further away. Now, as you can start to see here as I'm adding in the outline, I'm trying to add a little bit of comedy into my comic strip and some expression. So Gran really fancies this cake. She's reaching her hand forward and her lips are pursed forward in an ooh, don't mind if I do kind of face. We can see Gran here reaching for the sandwich, and it's a close-up shot of the moment she's about to take a bite. And as soon as she does, she's floating in midair. As you can see, the little details matter, so the clock in the background has broken. One of her slippers has fallen off. Her necklace of kind of pearls or big beads has popped open and they are falling all over the floor now. So try and add as much little details and background as you can for your comic strip too. And make sure to upload it to the online classroom. And as always, but particularly this week, I cannot wait to see what you create.